Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. I will not introduce anything. You guys watch the video and feel it. Then let's evaluate together. The ballroom at the Four Seasons Hotel in downtown Seattle glittered like a galaxy trapped in glass. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light across the polished marble floor, where men in tailored tuxedos and women in shimmering gowns swirled like figures in a snow globe. The air buzzed with the soft hum of jazz from a live quartet, the clink of champagne flutes, and the low murmur of high society gossip. It was the kind of night where every smile hid a calculation, every handshake a contract. The Coleman Foundation's annual charity gala was in full swing, raising funds for tech education in underserved communities. But the real show was about to begin. James Coleman stood near the open bar, a glass of bourbon in hand, his broad shoulders filling out a black tux that cost more than most people's rent. At 32, he was the youngest billionaire in Seattle, heir to Coleman Biotech, a powerhouse in green technology and medical research. His dark hair was swept back, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass, but his hazel eyes betrayed a restlessness that no amount of wealth could mask. He'd been dodging small talk all night, offering polite nods to board members and fake laughs to old money donors. His mother, Lila Coleman, glided through the crowd in a silver gown, her smile as practiced as a politician's. She'd reminded him before the gala, "This isn't just a party, James. It's a stage. Don't trip." But James wasn't thinking about the stage. He was thinking about her, Adanna Adeyemi, his wife of 6 months, the woman he'd married without ever seeing her face. The marriage was a deal, a merger between Coleman Biotech and the Adeyemi family's Nigerian energy empire, orchestrated by his late father to secure a foothold in Africa's renewable energy market. Adana had arrived in Seattle shrouded in mystery, her face always covered by an intricately embroidered headscarf, a Nigerian hijab that she wore not for religion, but for reasons she kept to herself. The press called her the Veiled Bride, spinning tales of secrecy and scandal. James had called her an enigma, a puzzle he wasn't sure he wanted to solve. Until tonight. The crowd's chatter faded as heads turned toward the grand staircase at the far end of the ballroom. A hush fell, heavy and electric, like the moment before a storm breaks. James followed their gaze, his grip tightening on his glass. There she was. Adana descended the stairs, each step deliberate, her presence commanding the room without a word. She wore a floor-length gown of emerald silk that hugged her curves, the fabric catching the light like liquid jade. Her shoulders were bare, her black skin glowing under the chandeliers, smooth and luminous as polished ebony. Her natural curls cascaded down her back, free and unapologetic, a crown of coils that seemed to defy gravity. But it wasn't the gown or the hair that stopped the room. It was her face. For the first time, Adana had removed her headscarf. Her cheekbones were high, her lips full and painted a deep berry red, her eyes, those gray, piercing eyes that James had only ever seen through sheer fabric, now locked on the crowd with a calm intensity. She was breathtaking, not just beautiful, but powerful, like a queen stepping into a court that didn't yet know her name. Cameras flashed, whispers erupted, and James felt his breath catch in his throat. She was his wife, and yet, in this moment, she was a stranger he suddenly wanted to know more than anything. Adana reached the bottom of the stairs, her gown trailing behind her like a river of green. She moved toward James, her steps soundless, her expression unreadable but not cold. The crowd parted instinctively, their eyes darting between her and James, hungry for drama. She stopped in front of him, close enough that he caught the faint scent of her perfume, sandalwood and jasmine, warm and grounding. Her lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "Why now?" James whispered, his voice low, meant only for her. Adana tilted her head, her eyes glinting with something like defiance. "Because it's time, James. Not for them. For me." Before he could respond, she turned to face the crowd, her posture regal, her voice clear and steady, cutting through the murmurs like a blade. "I know you've all wondered why I wear the scarf," she began, her Nigerian accent soft but commanding, each word deliberate. "Some of you thought it was shame. Others, secrecy. A few even said I was hiding something unsightly." A ripple of nervous laughter swept the room, quickly silenced by her gaze. "But the truth is simpler. I wanted you to see me for what I do, what I believe, what I build, not for how I look. In a world that judges what it sees, I chose to be heard first. Tonight, I'm ready to be seen." The room was silent for a heartbeat, then erupted in applause, tentative at first, then thunderous. James stood frozen, his bourbon forgotten, his chest tight with an emotion he couldn't name. Pride? Awe? Love? He'd spent 6 months trying to crack the code of Adanna Adeyemi, resenting the arranged marriage that bound them, dodging the whispers about her scarf, her heritage, her motives. But now, watching her hold the room in the palm of her hand, he realized he'd been wrong. She wasn't a puzzle. She was a force. As the applause died down, a figure emerged from the crowd, her red dress clinging to every curve, her blonde hair swept into an elegant updo. Vanessa Harrington, Seattle's golden girl, heiress to a real estate fortune and a walking headline in the gossip blogs. Her smile was all teeth, her blue eyes sharp as she approached James, ignoring Adana entirely. "Well, damn, James," Vanessa purred, her voice loud enough to draw eyes. "Your bride sure knows how to steal the show. But are you sure she's cut out for this world? Seattle's not exactly Lagos." Her laugh was light, but the jab landed hard. James's jaw tightened. He and Vanessa had a brief fling years ago, a whirlwind of late-night parties and bad decisions that ended when he realized she cared more about his bank account than his heart. Now she was back, circling like a shark smelling blood. "Back off, V," he said, his tone clipped. "This isn't your scene." Vanessa raised an eyebrow, unfazed. "Oh, it's always my scene, darling, you know that." She glanced at Adana, her smile turning venomous. "Nice dress, by the way. Very bold." Adana met her gaze, unruffled. "Thank you, Miss Harrington. I find boldness suits me. You should try it sometime." Her voice was calm, but the edge was unmistakable, and a few guests nearby stifled laughs. Vanessa's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly, tossing her hair and sauntering off into the crowd. James watched her go, a knot forming in his stomach. Vanessa wasn't just trouble, she was a tornado, and he had a feeling she was aiming for Adana. 6 months earlier, Coleman Estate, Medina, Seattle. The memory hit James like a wave, pulling him back to the day he met Adana. The Coleman Estate sprawled across a manicured lawn overlooking Lake Washington, its glass and wood architecture a testament to wealth and taste. James had paced the living room, his tie feeling like a noose, while his mother, Lila, arranged flowers with surgical precision. "This marriage is your father's legacy, James," she'd said, her voice cool. "The Adeyemi family is key to our expansion in Africa. Don't screw it up." He'd wanted to argue, to say he wasn't a chess piece in his father's game, but the weight of Coleman Biotech, its thousands of employees, its global reach, kept him silent. His father, dead a month from a heart attack, had planned this alliance years ago, tying James to a woman he'd never met. All he knew was her name. Adanna Adeyemi, heir to a Nigerian energy dynasty, educated at Oxford, and apparently fond of headscarves. When the black Escalade pulled into the driveway, James's heart had pounded. Adana stepped out, a vision in a golden Nigerian gown, her headscarf a cascade of embroidered silk that hid everything but her eyes. Those eyes, gray, sharp, unyielding, had locked onto him, and he'd felt like she was reading his soul, Her uncle, Ambassador Tunde Adeyemi, introduced her with pride, but Adana spoke for herself, her voice low and steady. "I'm here for my family, Mr. Coleman. What about you?" He'd fumbled his response, something about honoring commitments, and she'd nodded, her scarf fluttering in the breeze. The staff whispered, the press speculated, and James had felt the walls closing in. She was beautiful, sure, but she was also a stranger, a duty, a deal sealed in boardrooms he hadn't chosen. Back at the gala, the presence snapped into focus. Adana was now mingling with guests, her laugh soft but genuine as she spoke to a tech mogul about solar energy in Nigeria. James watched her, marveling at how she navigated the room, graceful, confident, untouchable. But the whispers hadn't stopped. He caught snippets from nearby tables. Why'd she hide her face so long? Is she really here for love or just the money? A Nigerian heiress? Sounds like a gold digger to me. His grip on the glass tightened. The rumors had dogged them from the start, fueled by tabloids and amplified by Margaret Voss, a board member at Coleman Biotech who'd never trusted Adana. Maggie, with her pinched smile and old money arrogance, had made it clear she saw Adana as an outsider, a threat to the company's image. And now Vanessa was stirring the pot, her red dress a beacon for trouble. Tommy T-Bone Alvarez, James's best friend and resident tech genius, sidled up, a beer in hand and a grin on his face. Tommy was all wiry energy, his curly hair a mess, his suit slightly rumpled. "Yo, man, your wife just dropped a bomb," he said, nudging James. "She's like Black Panther meets Beyoncé up there. You okay? You look like you forgot how to blink." James chuckled, the tension easing slightly. "I'm fine, T-Bone. Just processing." "Processing? Dude, she's a queen. You married a queen, and you're out here sipping bourbon like it's a Tuesday." Tommy leaned closer, lowering his voice. "But, heads up, Vanessa's circling. Saw her talking to Maggie Voss earlier. That's a bad combo, man." James's eyes narrowed. "Maggie's here?" "Yup. Corner table, plotting world domination or whatever she does." Tommy took a swig of his beer. "You want me to hack her email?" "Kidding. Unless you say go." Tempting, but no. James scanned the room, spotting Maggie's silver bob and sharp eyes. She was watching Adana, her lips pursed like she'd bitten a lemon. Vanessa was nearby, laughing too loudly with a group of influencers. The knot in James's stomach tightened. Adana returned to his side, her presence grounding him like an anchor. "You're quiet," she said, her voice soft but probing. "Something wrong?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "Just, you were incredible up there. I didn't expect—" He trailed off, unsure how to say it. "You didn't expect me to be me?" she teased, her eyes sparkling. "Don't worry, James. I'm full of surprises." He laughed, a real laugh, the kind he hadn't felt in months. "Yeah, I'm learning that." A guest approached, an older woman in a pearl necklace, her smile polite, but curious. "Miss Adeyemi, that was a stunning speech. But why now? Why reveal yourself tonight?" Adana's smile didn't waver. "Because I'm ready, Mrs. Langley." "Are you ready to see the real me?" The woman blinked, then laughed. "Oh, I like you. You're going to shake things up, aren't you?" "That's the plan," Adana said, her tone light, but laced with steel. As the night wore on, James stayed close to Adana, their hands brushing occasionally, a silent promise forming between them. But Vanessa's shadow lingered, her laughter cutting through the music like a warning. Maggie's gaze followed them, cold and calculating, and somewhere in the crowd, a photographer snapped a shot of Adana's unveiled face, a headline already forming in the tabloids. James didn't know it yet, but the storm was coming. Vanessa Harrington wasn't just a ghost from his past. She was a wrecking ball, and she had her sights set on tearing him and Adana apart. But tonight, as he stood beside his wife, her strength radiating like a beacon, he felt something he hadn't in years. Hope. As they left the gala, James took Adana's hand, her fingers warm against his. "You changed everything tonight," he said, his voice thick with emotion. She squeezed his hand, her smile soft but fierce. "We're just getting started, James." If this moment gave you chills, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. Where are you watching from? James and Adana's story is about to get wilder, and you don't want to miss what's next. 6 months before the gala that would change everything, the Coleman estate in Medina, Seattle, was a hive of quiet chaos. The sprawling mansion, all glass walls and polished oak, sat perched above Lake Washington, its manicured lawn kissed by the late summer breeze. Inside, the air was thick with expectation, the kind that made your skin prickle. James Coleman stood in the living room, tugging at his tie like it was trying to choke him. At 32, he was used to boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, but this was different. This was personal. His mother, Lila Coleman, adjusted a vase of white lilies on the grand piano, her silver blonde hair pinned in a flawless chignon. She wore a navy pantsuit, sharp as a blade, and her voice was just as cutting. "James, stop fidgeting. This isn't a negotiation you can charm your way out of. The Adeyemi alliance is your father's legacy. Coleman Biotech needs their energy contracts in Africa, and you need to seal this deal." James shot her a look, his hazel eyes flashing. "A deal? It's a marriage, Mom. I'm not a pawn in Dad's chess game." Lila's lips thinned. "You're the king, James. Act like it. Adanna Adeyemi is their heir, Oxford-educated, brilliant by all accounts. She's not some random girl off the street." "Yeah, and I've never even seen her face," he muttered, running a hand through his dark hair. "What kind of marriage starts like that?" "The kind that keeps this company alive," Lila snapped. "Your father spent years building this partnership. Don't let your ego ruin it." James turned away, staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the lake, its surface glinting like a sheet of steel. His father, Richard Coleman, had died a month ago, his heart giving out at 65, leaving James to inherit a biotech empire and a list of obligations longer than the Space Needle was tall. This marriage was the top of that list. A deal struck 5 years ago to merge Coleman's green tech with the Adeyemi family's Nigerian renewable energy empire. All James knew about Adana was her name, her education, and her strange habit of wearing a headscarf that hid her face. The press was already sniffing around, calling her the mystery bride, and he could feel the weight of their curiosity pressing against him. A low rumble interrupted his thoughts. A black Escalade pulled into the circular driveway, its tinted windows reflecting the afternoon sun. James's stomach twisted. "Showtime," he whispered to himself. The doors opened, and out stepped Ambassador Tunde Adeyemi, a tall man in a tailored kaftan, his presence warm but commanding. Beside him was Adana, and James's breath caught. She wore a golden Nigerian gown, its fabric shimmering like molten sunlight, every fold accentuating her graceful frame. Her headscarf, a cascade of embroidered silk, covered her face, leaving only her eyes visible, gray, sharp, and unnervingly perceptive. She moved with a quiet confidence, her steps soundless on the gravel, like she owned the ground beneath her. Tunde clasped James's hand, his smile broad. "Mr. Coleman, it's an honor. My niece, Adana, is the pride of our family. I trust you'll find her as remarkable as we do." James nodded, his throat dry. "Pleasure to meet you, Ambassador." He turned to Adana, unsure what to say. Welcome to Seattle, Miss Adeyemi." Adana's eyes met his, and he felt like she was peeling back his layers, seeing the doubt he tried to hide. "I'm here for my family, Mr. Coleman," she said, her voice low and melodic, tinged with a Nigerian accent that made every word feel deliberate. "What about you?" The question hit like a dart. He fumbled, forcing a smile. "Honoring commitments, I guess. Same as you." She tilted her head, her scarf fluttering slightly. "We'll see." Before James could respond, a sleek red Porsche roared into the driveway, screeching to a stop. The door swung open, and Vanessa Harrington stepped out, all long legs and calculated charm. Her blonde hair was pulled into a high ponytail, her black mini dress hugging every curve. She sauntered toward them, her heels clicking like a metronome, a smile playing on her lips that didn't reach her eyes. "James, darling," Vanessa called, ignoring everyone else. "I heard about your big day and had to drop by. You know I can't resist a good party." She stopped beside him, close enough that her perfume, something sharp and expensive, tickled his nose. Her gaze flicked to Adana, and her smile turned razor-thin. "Oh, and this must be the famous bride. Love the scarf. Very exotic." James's jaw clenched. Vanessa was trouble, always had been. Their fling 2 years ago had been a mistake. A blur of champagne and bad choices that ended when he saw through her gold-digging games. Now she was here, invited by God knows who, and he had a sinking feeling it wasn't a coincidence. Adana didn't flinch. "Thank you, Miss Harrington," she said, her tone smooth as silk. "I find simplicity suits me. Extravagance, though." She glanced at Vanessa's dress, her eyes glinting. "That's a choice." Tunde chuckled softly, and James bit back a grin. Vanessa's smile faltered, but she recovered, tossing her hair. "Charming. James, you've got your hands full with this one." "V, maybe now's not the time," James said, his voice tight. He caught a glimpse of Maggie Voss, the board member, standing near the entrance, her silver bob gleaming under the sun. Maggie's eyes were locked on Adana, her expression unreadable but cold. James's gut twisted. Maggie had been his father's confidant, but she'd made it clear she didn't trust outsiders in the company. Had she invited Vanessa to stir things up? "Let's head inside," Lila interjected, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "We have much to discuss." The meeting took place in the estate's library, a cavernous room lined with mahogany shelves and leather-bound books. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting shadows on the Persian rug. James sat at the head of a long table, Adana and Tunde across from him, Lila and Maggie on either side. Vanessa, to everyone's annoyance, had insisted on staying, lounging in a corner chair like she owned the place. Tunde outlined the marriage terms with the precision of a diplomat. "The alliance between Coleman Biotech and Adeyemi Energy is a partnership of mutual benefit," he said, his voice warm but firm. "Adana will represent our interests in Seattle, and James, you'll ensure Coleman's technology integrates with our solar and wind projects in Nigeria. The marriage solidifies trust." James nodded, but his mind was elsewhere, stuck on Adana's eyes, the way they seemed to see through him. She sat perfectly still, her hands folded, her scarf a golden veil that made her both present and untouchable. He wanted to ask why she wore it, but the words felt too heavy. Maggie cleared her throat, her voice clipped. "With all due respect, Ambassador, this is a bold move. Seattle's business community values transparency. Miss Adeyemi's choice of attire might raise questions." Adana's head turned slightly, her eyes locking onto Maggie. "My attire is my choice, Mrs. Voss," she said, her voice calm but edged with steel. "If your community judges me by it, that's their limitation, not mine." The room went quiet. Lila's lips twitched, almost a smile. Tunde nodded approvingly. Maggie's face tightened, but she said nothing. Vanessa, meanwhile, let out a low laugh. "Oh, I like her," she said, her tone dripping with mockery. "She's got fire. But James, you sure you can handle that?" "Enough, Vanessa," James snapped, his patience fraying. "This isn't your meeting." She shrugged, crossing her legs with deliberate slowness. "Just looking out for you, babe. You know how I am." Adana's eyes flicked to Vanessa, then back to James, and he felt a pang of guilt, like he'd already failed some unspoken test. The meeting wrapped up with polite assurances and vague promises, but the air was thick with undercurrents: Maggie's distrust, Vanessa's provocation, and Adana's quiet strength. Later that evening, James found himself alone in the estate's kitchen, nursing a coffee and replaying the day. The staff had retreated, leaving the house silent except for the hum of the fridge. Adana had gone to her guest suite in the East Wing, and Tundi was on a call with Nigeria. James's phone buzzed with a text from Tommy Alvarez, his best friend and resident tech wizard. Tommy: "Yo, man, you survived the bride meeting? She's intense, huh? That scarf's like a superhero cape." James chuckled, typing back, "She's something, all right. Vanessa showed up. Bad vibes." Tommy: "Vanessa? Dude, that's a red alert. She's like a vampire, but for bank accounts. Watch your back." James sighed, setting the phone down. Tommy was right. Vanessa was trouble, and Maggie wasn't much better. He'd overheard the staff whispering about Adana's scarf, caught snippets of gossip from the caterers. Is she hiding something? Why marry a guy she doesn't know? The questions gnawed at him, not because he believed them, but because they echoed his own doubts. Who was Adana really? And why had she agreed to this? The kitchen door creaked, and Adana stepped in, her gown replaced by a simple black dress, her headscarf now a deep indigo that framed her eyes like a night sky. She froze, clearly not expecting him. "Oh," she said, her voice softer than before. "I didn't know anyone was here." "Just me," James said, gesturing to his coffee. "Couldn't sleep. You?" She hesitated, then moved to the counter, pulling a tin of Nigerian ginger tea from a bag. "Jet lag. Lagos is 9 hours ahead." She filled a kettle, her movements precise, almost ritualistic. "You don't have to stay, you know. I'm fine." He leaned back, studying her. "I want to, unless you're planning to kick me out." Her eyes crinkled, a hint of a smile. "Tempting, but I'll let you stay. For now." They fell into an easy silence, the kettle's hum filling the space. James took a chance. "So, the scarf, is it a cultural thing? Or just you?" Adana poured hot water into a mug, the steam curling around her. "It's both," she said after a moment. "In Nigeria, my family used headscarves for ceremonies, a way to show humility. I kept it when I came here, to control how people see me. This city loves to judge what it doesn't understand." He nodded, the honesty catching him off guard. "Fair. Seattle's got its claws out sometimes." "Sometimes?" She raised an eyebrow, sipping her tea. "Your friend Vanessa seems to have them sharpened." James laughed, the sound surprising him. "Yeah, she's a lot. Sorry about her. She wasn't supposed to be here." Adana shrugged, her scarf shifting slightly. "She's not my problem, James, but she might be yours." The words hung between them, a warning wrapped in calm. He wanted to ask more, to dig into the mystery of her, but the moment felt fragile, like a thread that might snap if pulled too hard. Instead, he raised his coffee mug. "To surviving day one, then." She clinked her mug against his, her eyes warm through the scarf. Day one. And the next morning, James woke to a headline on his phone. "Coleman's Mystery Bride, Nigerian Heiress or Gold Digger." The article, dripping with innuendo, called Adana an enigma in a headscarf and hinted at ulterior motives. Maggie's name was quoted, her words carefully vague but damning. "We hope Miss Adeyemi aligns with our values." Vanessa's presence was mentioned too, with a photo of her smirking beside James at the estate. He cursed under his breath, tossing the phone onto the bed. The whispers were turning into a roar, and Vanessa was fanning the flames. Adana, he knew, would face the brunt of it. Her scarf, her heritage, her very existence in his world. And yet, she'd stood her ground yesterday, unflinching against Maggie's barbs and Vanessa's venom. Tommy barged into his room, a half-eaten bagel in hand. "Yo, you see the news? They're coming for your girl, man. And Vanessa's out here acting like she's the main character." James groaned, rubbing his temples. "I know. It's a mess." Tommy grinned, undeterred. "Mess? Nah, this is drama, bro. Your wife's got balls of steel, though. Did you see her shut down Vanessa? I almost clapped." Despite himself, James smiled. "Yeah, she's something else." "Something else?" Tommy snorted. "She's a damn superhero. You better step up, or she's gonna leave you in the dust." As Tommy rambled on, James's mind drifted to Adana, her tea, her laugh, the way she'd called Vanessa his problem. He didn't know what this marriage would become, but one thing was clear. Adanna Adeyemi wasn't here to play small, and neither was he. If this clash of worlds got your heart racing, smash that subscribe button and drop a comment. Where are you watching from? James and Adana's story is just heating up, and trust me, you won't believe what's coming next. The Coleman Biotech headquarters in downtown Seattle was a sleek fortress of glass and steel, its top-floor boardroom offering a panoramic view of the Space Needle piercing a gray September sky. James Coleman sat at the head of a polished mahogany table, his tie loosened, his hazel eyes scanning a stack of contracts that could make or break the company's future. The Zenith Energy deal, a multi-billion-dollar partnership to integrate Coleman's biofuel tech with Zenith's solar grids, was teetering on the edge of collapse. The room buzzed with tension, board members fidgeting, their whispers sharp as knives. Margaret Maggie Voss, the silver-haired board member with a smile like a closed trap, leaned forward, her voice dripping with condescension. "James, Zenith's legal team is stalling. They're questioning our patents, our timelines, everything. If we lose this, it's on you." James's jaw tightened. He'd spent months courting Zenith, flying to their headquarters in San Francisco, whining and dining their CEO. Losing the deal would tank Coleman's stock and give Maggie the ammo she needed to question his leadership. "I'm handling it, Maggie," he said, his tone clipped. "We're close." "Close isn't signed," she shot back, her eyes flicking to the empty chair beside him. "Where's your wife, by the way? I thought she was involved now." The room went quiet, the air heavy with unspoken judgment. Adanna Adeyemi, James's wife of 3 months, had started attending board meetings, her sharp mind catching details the rest of them missed. But her headscarf, her Nigerian accent, and her refusal to play the corporate game had made her a target. Maggie never missed a chance to jab, and the board whispered about the veiled bride behind her back. "She's on her way," James said, checking his watch. He hoped she was. Adana had a habit of moving on her own schedule, and he wasn't sure if she'd even show after last night's awkward dinner, where he'd fumbled through small talk and she'd retreated to her suite early. As if on cue, the door opened, and Adana stepped in, a vision in a tailored navy blazer and matching skirt, her headscarf a deep burgundy that framed her gray eyes like a storm cloud. Her black skin glowed under the fluorescent lights, and her presence shifted the room's gravity. She carried a leather portfolio, her steps confident but silent, like a panther stalking prey. "Sorry I'm late," she said, her voice smooth, her Nigerian accent giving each word a rhythmic weight. "Traffic on I-5. You know how Seattle is." A few board members chuckled, but Maggie's smile was brittle. "We were just discussing the Zenith deal, Miss Adeyemi. Perhaps you have insights." Adana slid into the chair beside James, her eyes scanning the contracts. "I do," she said, flipping to a marked page. "There's a clause here, Section 4.2, Intellectual Property Rights. It's vague, deliberately so. Zenith could claim partial ownership of our biofuel patents if we don't tighten it. They're not stalling because they're unsure. They're playing us. The room froze. James leaned forward, his brow furrowing as he read the clause. She was right. The language was slippery, a trap hidden in legal jargon. "How did you catch that?" he asked, genuinely impressed. Adana met his gaze, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. "I read, James. It's what I do." Maggie coughed, her face sour. "That's a bold accusation, Miss Adeyemi. Zenith has been a trusted partner." "Trusted?" Adana cut in, her tone calm but razor-sharp. "They're a business, Mrs. Voss, not a charity. If you trust them, you're not paying attention." A stunned silence followed. One board member stifled a laugh. James bit back a grin, his respect for Adana spiking. She wasn't just smart, she was fearless. "All right," he said, taking control. "We revise the clause, lock it down. I'll call Zenith's CEO tonight. Adana, you're with me on this." She nodded, her scarf shifting slightly. "Good. Let's not give them an inch." As the meeting adjourned, Maggie lingered. Her eyes narrowed at Adana. James caught the look and felt a chill. Maggie wasn't just skeptical, she was plotting, and he had a sinking feeling it wasn't just about the deal. That evening, James found himself at Pike Place Market, the air thick with the scent of fresh fish, roasted coffee, and damp pavement. The market was alive with tourists snapping photos of the flying fish and locals weaving through stalls. He'd convinced Adana to join him for a walk, partly to thank her for saving the Zenith deal, partly because he wanted to know her, really know her, beyond the boardroom and the marriage contract. They sat at a small table outside Le Panier, a French bakery, sipping espressos and sharing a croissant. Adana's headscarf was a soft teal today, her eyes bright against the overcast sky. She wore a cream sweater and jeans, casual but elegant, her black skin a striking contrast to the muted tones of Seattle's fall. "Thanks for today," James said, breaking the comfortable silence. "You saved my ass in there. Maggie was ready to crucify me." Adana smirked, tearing off a piece of croissant. "Maggie's not after you, James. She's after me. I'm the outsider, remember? The veiled bride who doesn't belong." He winced, the tabloid headline flashing in his mind. The press hadn't let up, their stories growing nastier by the week. The latest one, fueled by an anonymous source, likely Maggie, had called Adana a foreign opportunist, angling for Coleman's fortune. "I'm sorry about the articles," he said. "I've got my PR team on it, but—" "Don't," she interrupted, her voice firm but not harsh. "I don't need your pity, James. I've dealt with worse than gossip. Lagos taught me that." He leaned back, curious. "Tell me about Lagos. What was it like growing up there?" Her eyes softened, a rare vulnerability slipping through. "Loud, colorful, chaotic in the best way. My mother used to take me to the markets, teaching me how to haggle for yams and fabrics. My family's Yoruba, so we had ceremonies, weddings, namings, where women wore headscarves to show humility. I started wearing one when I moved to Europe for school to keep people at a distance. It's not just cultural, it's armor." James nodded, absorbing her words. "And here? Is Seattle armor-worthy?" She laughed, a low musical sound that made his chest warm. "Oh, definitely. This city's got its own kind of chaos, but I'm figuring it out." He wanted to ask more, to peel back the layers of her, but his phone buzzed, shattering the moment. A text from Tommy. "Yo, check the blogs. Vanessa's at it again. Bad news." James's stomach dropped. He opened the link Tommy sent, a gossip site headline screaming, "Coleman caught cozy with ex-Vanessa Harrington at Belltown Bar." The article included a grainy photo of him and Vanessa at a bar last week, her hand on his arm, his smile too relaxed. It was a setup. He'd gone to discuss a real estate deal for the company, and Vanessa had been all charm and innuendo. He'd left after 10 minutes, but the photo told a different story. "Everything okay?" Adana asked, her eyes narrowing. He hesitated, then slid the phone across the table. "See for yourself." She scanned the article, her expression unreadable. When she looked up, her voice was cool. "You and Vanessa seem friendly." "It's not what it looks like," he said quickly. "She cornered me about a deal. I didn't—" "James," she cut in, her tone sharp. "I don't care about the photo. I care that you didn't tell me. If we're partners, we don't keep secrets. Not from each other." He swallowed, guilt twisting his gut. "You're right. I should have said something. It won't happen again." She studied him, her eyes searching, then nodded. "Good. Because I don't play games, James. Not with you." The weight of her words settled over him, a promise and a challenge. He wanted to reach for her hand, to bridge the gap between them, but she stood, brushing crumbs from her jeans. "Let's walk," she said. "The market's nicer when it's moving." That night, the Coleman estate was cloaked in rain, the kind of Seattle drizzle that soaked you to the bone. James was in his study, reviewing Zenith revisions, when he heard footsteps. Adana stood in the doorway, her headscarf wet, her black dress clinging to her frame. She'd been outside, alone, her eyes distant but calm. "You're soaked," he said, grabbing a blanket from the couch. "What were you doing out there?" "Thinking," she said, taking the blanket but not wrapping it around herself. "Rain helps me think. Lagos storms were louder, but this, it's enough." He stepped closer, the air between them charged. "You okay? After the article, I mean." She looked at him, her scarf framing her eyes like a painting. "I'm fine, James. But you need to be careful. Vanessa's not just a flirt. She's a predator." He nodded, his throat tight. "I know. I'm done with her games." "Good," she said, her voice softening. "Because I'm starting to like you, James Coleman. Don't make me regret it." The words hit like a spark, and before he could stop himself, he reached out, his fingers brushing the edge of her scarf. He didn't lift it, just let his hand hover, a question unspoken. Her eyes held his, steady, unafraid. "Not yet," she whispered, but then she leaned forward, her lips grazing his through the thin fabric of her scarf. The kiss was fleeting, electric, a promise wrapped in restraint. They pulled back, both breathing hard, the rain drumming against the windows. "Damn," James muttered, a grin breaking through. "You're gonna kill me, Adana." She laughed, the sound warm and unguarded. "You'll survive. Maybe." The next morning, James woke to a call from Tommy, his voice frantic. "Yo, man, you seen the news? Vanessa's doubling down. She's telling everyone you two are reconnecting, and Maggie's eating it up, saying Adana's a distraction. It's bad, bro." James cursed, pulling up the latest article. Coleman's love triangle, billionaire torn between veiled bride and Seattle siren. The photo was the same, but Vanessa's quotes were new, dripping with insinuation. "James and I have history. Some connections don't fade." He stormed to the kitchen where Adana was brewing her ginger tea, her headscarf of vibrant orange. She glanced at his face and sighed. "Let me guess. Vanessa?" "Yeah," he said, tossing his phone on the counter. "She's spinning lies, and Maggie's backing her. I'm shutting this down." Adana stirred her tea, her movements calm. "Don't just shut it down, James. Fight smart. Vanessa wants a reaction. Don't give her one." He stared at her, marveling at her composure. "How do you do that? Stay so steady?" She smiled, her eyes crinkling. "Practice, and a lot of tea." He laughed, the tension easing. But as he watched her, he knew the storm was far from over. Vanessa was a wildfire, Maggie a snake, and Adana was the one thing he couldn't afford to lose. The Zenith deal was his to win. But this marriage, this woman, was becoming something more, something real. Meanwhile, across town, Vanessa Harrington sat in her penthouse, sipping a martini and scrolling through the comments on the gossip article. Maggie Voss's number flashed on her phone, and she answered with a smirk. "Maggie, darling, it's working. James is rattled and his little bride is on edge. Ready for phase 2? Maggie's voice was cold. "Keep pushing, Vanessa. We need Coleman Biotech free of distractions, especially her." Vanessa laughed, her eyes gleaming. "Oh, don't worry. I've got James right where I want him." If this drama's got you hooked, smash that subscribe button and drop a comment. Where are you watching from? James and Adana's world is about to explode and you don't want to miss the fallout. The Washington State Convention Center in downtown Seattle buzzed like a hive, its glass atrium packed with tech moguls, startup founders, and journalists chasing the next big headline. The annual Tech West Summit was in full swing, a glitzy showcase of innovation where billion-dollar deals were inked over artisanal coffee and branded swag. James Coleman stood on the main stage, his tailored navy suit crisp, his dark hair slicked back, but his hazel eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. He was mid-presentation, unveiling Coleman Biotech's partnership with Zenith Energy, a deal that could redefine green tech. The spotlight was hot, the crowd expectant, but his mind was elsewhere, tangled in the mess that had exploded 2 days ago. Adanna Adeyemi, his wife of 4 months, sat in the front row, her burgundy headscarf a beacon in the sea of suits. Her black skin glowed under the stage lights, her gray eyes locked on him, but her expression was unreadable, a fortress of calm that made his stomach churn. She hadn't spoken to him since the tabloid bomb dropped, a headline that still burned in his mind. Coleman caught in steamy affair with Vanessa Harrington. The article, splashed across every gossip site in Seattle, included photos of James leaving Vanessa's penthouse at dawn, his shirt untucked, his face flushed. The story was a lie spun into truth. Vanessa had played him, and he'd fallen for it like a fool. It had happened Wednesday night, at Vanessa's Belltown penthouse, a sleek cage of marble and chrome overlooking Puget Sound. She'd invited him under the guise of a urgent real estate deal for Coleman Biotech, her texts insistent. "We need to talk now, James. It's big." He'd gone against his better judgment, still reeling from the earlier gossip about their cozy bar meeting. Vanessa had greeted him in a silk dress that left little to the imagination, her blonde hair loose, her smile predatory. Over glasses of bourbon, she'd leaned close, her hand grazing his thigh, her voice dripping with nostalgia. "Remember us, James? No contracts, no headscarves, just fun." He'd pushed her away, his head foggy from the drink she kept pouring. "I'm married, V. This isn't happening." But the room spun, his words slurred, and the next thing he knew, he was waking up on her couch, his jacket gone, his memory a blur. Vanessa stood over him, smirking, as paparazzi cameras flashed outside. "You should go, darling," she'd said. "Wouldn't want Adana getting the wrong idea." The photos hit the internet hours later, and Seattle ate it up. James had tried to explain to Adana, barging into her Capitol Hill apartment with apologies spilling out. "I was drunk, Adana. She set me up. I didn't sleep with her, I swear." But Adana's eyes had been cold, her voice cutting. "You didn't sleep with her, James. Then why were you there? Why do you keep letting her in?" She'd shut the door, leaving him in the rain, his heart sinking like a stone. Now at the summit, he forced himself to focus, clicking through slides about biofuel yields and solar integration. The crowd applauded, but his eyes kept drifting to Adana. She hadn't left him, hadn't packed her bags, but the distance between them felt like a chasm. He needed to fix this, but how? As he wrapped up, a journalist in the back raised a hand, her voice sharp. "Mr. Coleman, great presentation, but let's address the elephant in the room. Rumors are swirling about you and Vanessa Harrington. Care to comment on your personal life?" The room went silent, a collective intake of breath. James's grip on the podium tightened, his pulse racing. He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, Adana stood, her headscarf catching the light like a flame. The crowd turned, cameras swiveling, and James felt the air shift. "I'll take this," Adana said, her voice clear, her Nigerian accent lending each word a quiet power. She stepped onto the stage, her navy dress hugging her curves, her presence commanding the room without effort. "I'm Adanna Adeyemi, James's wife, in case you forgot. If you have questions about our marriage, ask me. But if you're here to peddle gossip, I suggest you find a better hobby." The journalist smirked, undeterred. "No offense, Mrs. Coleman, but photos don't lie. Your husband was seen leaving Vanessa Harrington's penthouse. Are you saying it's all a misunderstanding?" Adana's eyes narrowed, but her smile was ice. "I'm saying I don't answer to tabloids, and neither does my husband. If you want to talk about Zenith, about the future of green energy, I'm here. Otherwise, sit down." A murmur rippled through the crowd, some shocked, others impressed. The journalist hesitated, then sank back into her seat. James stared at Adana, his chest tight with awe and guilt. She was defending him, even after everything, but her words weren't for him. They were for her dignity. He stepped forward, his voice low but firm. "Adana's right. We're here to talk business, not rumors. Zenith is a game changer and we're focused on that. Next question." The summit moved on, but the damage was done. As James and Adana left the stage, the crowd's whispers followed them like a shadow. Maggie Voss, seated near the exit, watched with a smug smile, her silver bob glinting under the lights. Vanessa, in a red blazer and pencil skirt, lounged nearby, her blue eyes gleaming with triumph. James felt their gazes like knives in his back. Outside, in a quiet hallway lined with abstract art, James caught Adana's arm as she headed for the elevator. "Adana, wait! We need to talk!" She pulled free, her eyes flashing. "Talk? You had your chance, James. You went to her penthouse. You let her play you. What's there to say?" "I was an idiot," he said, his voice raw. "I thought it was about business. She got me drunk, set me up. I didn't touch her. I swear on my life." Adana's laugh was bitter, cutting through the hum of the convention center. "You didn't touch her? Then why were you there, James? Why do you keep dancing with her lies? You're not a victim. You're a man who made a choice." Her words hit like a punch, and he staggered back, guilt choking him. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I love you, Adana. I know I screwed up, but I love you." Her eyes softened for a moment, then hardened again. "Love isn't enough, James. Trust is, and you broke it." She turned, her headscarf fluttering, and walked away, leaving him alone with the echo of her words. That night, James drowned his guilt at a dive bar in Fremont, the kind of place where the jukebox played Nirvana and the bartender didn't ask questions. Tommy Alvarez slid into the booth across from him, a beer in hand, his curly hair a mess under a backward cap. "Yo, man, you look like you got hit by a bus," Tommy said, shoving a basket of fries toward him. "Summit was brutal, huh?" James downed his whiskey, the burn doing little to dull the ache. "Brutal's an understatement. Adana hates me, Vanessa's winning, and Maggie's probably planning my funeral." Tommy snorted, grabbing a fry. "Maggie's always planning someone's funeral, but Vanessa, she's a whole-ass villain. I saw her at the summit, smirking like she owns you. What the hell happened at her place?" James groaned, rubbing his temples. "I don't know, T-Bone. I went to talk business, had too many drinks, woke up on her couch. Next thing I know, paparazzi are snapping pics, and Adana thinks I cheated." Tommy's eyes widened. "Whoa, hold up. You didn't, with Vanessa, right? No, James snapped, louder than intended. I'd never. But Adana doesn't believe me, and I don't blame her. I was stupid enough to walk into Vanessa's trap. Tommy leaned back, whistling. Damn, man, you're in deep. But Adana, she's a queen. Did you see her shut down that reporter? I almost stood up and clapped. James managed a weak smile. Yeah, she's incredible. And I'm the idiot who let Vanessa get in my head. Fix it, bro, Tommy said, his tone serious for once. Adana's worth it. But you gotta go big. No half-ass apologies. James nodded, staring into his empty glass. Tommy was right. He needed to fight for her, not just with words, but with actions. But how, when the world was watching, and Vanessa was pulling every string? Meanwhile, at her Capitol Hill apartment, Adana sat cross-legged on her couch, a mug of ginger tea steaming in her hands. The walls were adorned with Yoruba art, vibrant masks and woven tapestries that reminded her of Lagos. Her headscarf was off, her natural curls free, framing her face like a halo. She stared at her phone, the tabloid article still open, Vanessa's smug face next to James's disheveled one. Her sister Maya called from Lagos, her voice crackling through the video chat. Adana, what the hell? This Coleman guy's cheating already? I told you this marriage was a mistake. Adana sighed, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. He says it was a setup, Maya. I don't know what to believe. Believe your gut, Maya snapped, her braids swaying as she leaned closer to the camera. You're Adanna Adeyemi, not some doormat. If he's playing you, walk away. Come home. I'm not running, Adana said, her voice firm. I agreed to this for our family, but I'm staying for me. James, he's not perfect, but he's not what the tabloids say. Maya's eyes softened. You love him, don't you? Adana didn't answer, but her silence was enough. She ended the call, her tea gone cold. Outside, Seattle's rain pattered against the windows, a rhythm that matched her racing thoughts. She didn't trust James, not fully, but she saw the man he could be, the man who'd looked at her with awe at the gala, who'd laughed over croissants at Pike Place. Vanessa's game was cruel, but Adana wasn't a pawn. She was a queen, and queens didn't fold. Across town, Vanessa Harrington lounged in her penthouse, a glass of rosé in hand, scrolling through the summit coverage. Maggie Voss's voice crackled through her Bluetooth speaker. You've done well, Vanessa, Maggie said, her tone icy. The board's questioning James's judgment, and Adana's credibility is crumbling. Keep the pressure on. Vanessa smirked, twirling a strand of blonde hair. Oh, I'm just getting started, Maggie. James is mine, and that headscarf girl, she's out of her league. Maggie's laugh was sharp. Don't underestimate her. She's smarter than you think. Vanessa's smile faded, but only for a moment. Smart or not, she's no match for me. Watch and learn. If this scandal's got you on the edge of your seat, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. Where are you watching from? James and Adana's fight is about to get explosive, and you won't believe what's next. The rain in Seattle had a way of making everything feel heavier, like the city itself was holding its breath. Adanna Adeyemi's Capitol Hill apartment was a warm refuge from the drizzle, its walls adorned with vibrant Yoruba masks and woven tapestries that glowed under the soft light of a floor lamp. The air carried the spicy tang of Nigerian ginger tea, brewing on the stove, mingling with the faint scent of jasmine from a candle on the coffee table. Adana sat on her couch, her natural curls loose, her headscarf, a deep indigo today, draped over a chair. Her gray eyes, usually sharp and unyielding, were clouded with doubt as she stared at her phone, the tabloid headline still burning in her mind. Coleman's love triangle, billionaire torn between veiled bride and Seattle siren. It had been 3 days since the Tech West summit, where she'd faced down a journalist's vicious question about James's supposed affair with Vanessa Harrington. 3 days since James had pleaded for her forgiveness, his voice raw with guilt. "I was drunk, Adana. She set me up. I didn't sleep with her, I swear." She'd walked away, her heart a tangle of anger and longing, unsure if she could trust him or herself. But tonight, he was coming over, claiming he had proof that could change everything. She wasn't sure she was ready to hear it, but she'd agreed. Maybe because she was tired of fighting. Maybe because, despite everything, she still loved him. A knock at the door jolted her from her thoughts. She stood, smoothing her black sweater and jeans, and opened it to find James Coleman, soaked from the rain, his dark hair plastered to his forehead. His navy coat clung to his broad shoulders, and his hazel eyes were intense, almost desperate. In his hand was a manila folder, its edges damp. "Adana," he said, his voice low, "I know you don't want to see me, but you need to hear this, please." She stepped aside, her expression guarded. "5 minutes, James. Don't waste them." He entered, dripping water onto her hardwood floor, and set the folder on the coffee table. The apartment felt smaller with him in it, his presence filling the space like a storm. She crossed her arms, leaning against the counter. "What's in the folder?" "Proof," he said, wiping rain from his face. "Tommy dug into Vanessa's emails. She's been working with Maggie Voss to sabotage us, both of us. The penthouse thing, the photos, all of it was planned." Adana's eyes narrowed, but she didn't move. "Keep talking." He opened the folder, pulling out printed emails, their text highlighted in yellow. "These are from Vanessa to Maggie, dated a week before the penthouse. They talk about setting the stage to make me look unfaithful. Vanessa spiked my drinks, Adana. I didn't sleep with her. I passed out, and Maggie's been feeding the press lies to turn the board against you, saying you're a distraction to the company." She took the emails, her fingers brushing his, and scanned them. Her breath caught as she read Vanessa's words. "Get him to my place and I'll handle the rest. The board will eat it up, and his Nigerian princess will be out." Another email from Maggie. "Make it messy. We need Coleman Biotech free of her influence." Adana's jaw tightened, her anger shifting from James to the women who'd orchestrated this. "They thought they could break us," she said, her voice low, dangerous. "They underestimated me." James stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. "They underestimated both of us. I'm so sorry, Adana. I was an idiot to go to her place, to let her get in my head. But I love you. I've loved you since the gala, maybe before. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this." She looked at him, the emails crumpled in her hand, and saw the man she'd glimpsed in quiet moments, the one who'd laughed with her at Pike Place, who'd kissed her through her scarf in the rain. Her anger didn't vanish, but it softened, giving way to something deeper. "You hurt me, James," she said, her voice trembling. "But I'm not done with you. Not yet." He exhaled, relief flooding his face. "Thank you. What do we do now?" She set the emails down, her mind racing. "We fight. Maggie and Vanessa want a war. We'll give them one, but we do it smart. Together." He nodded, a spark of determination in his eyes. "Together." The tension in the room shifted, the air crackling with something new. Adana moved to the stove, pouring 2 mugs of ginger tea, her movements deliberate, grounding. She handed one to James, their fingers lingering as he took it. "Sit," she said, gesturing to the couch. "We need a plan." They sat, close enough that their knees brushed, the warmth of the tea seeping into their hands. Adana outlined her strategy. They'd present the emails at the next board meeting, expose Maggie's betrayal, and demand her resignation. Vanessa, meanwhile, would face legal consequences for defamation. "We hit them where it hurts," Adana said, her voice steady. "Maggie's power, Vanessa's reputation. They'll regret crossing us." James listened, marveling at her clarity, her strength. "You're incredible," he said, his voice soft. "I don't deserve you, Adana." She met his gaze, her eyes softening. "Maybe not, but you're stuck with me." He laughed, the sound breaking the last of the tension. They talked for hours, the rain a steady drum outside, their voices weaving a fragile bridge over the chasm of the past week. James opened up about his fear of failing his father's legacy, the pressure of leading Coleman Biotech. Adana shared her own doubts, her worry that Seattle would strip away her Nigerian roots, her identity. "I wore the headscarf to protect myself," she said, her fingers tracing the mug's rim. "But with you, I'm starting to feel safe without it." James's heart thudded. He set his mug down, turning to face her fully. "I see you, Adana. Not just your face, but you, who you are. I don't need the scarf gone to know I love you." Her breath hitched, and for a moment they were still, the world narrowing to the space between them. Then she moved, closing the distance, her lips finding his in a kiss that was all heat and hunger. It wasn't restrained like their first kiss. No scarf to soften it. This was raw, urgent, a collision of need and forgiveness. James's hands slid to her waist, pulling her closer, her curls brushing his face as she deepened the kiss. They tumbled onto the couch, her sweater riding up, his coat hitting the floor. Her skin, warm and smooth under his touch, was a revelation. Her black beauty a canvas he wanted to worship. She arched against him, her breath hitching as his lips found her neck, whispering her name like a prayer. "James," she murmured, her voice a mix of desire and warning. "We're supposed to be planning." He grinned against her skin, his hands stilling. "We are. This is team building." She laughed, the sound rich and unguarded, and pushed him back, straddling him with a playful glare. "You're trouble, Coleman." But her eyes were soft, her fingers tracing his jaw, and they kissed again, slower this time, savoring the moment. When they finally pulled apart, sprawled on the couch, Adana's head on his chest, they were breathless, laughing like teenagers. "I think I spilled your tea," James said, glancing at the overturned mug on the table. Adana groaned, swatting his arm. "That's a crime in Nigeria, you know. You're lucky I like you." He chuckled, pulling her closer. "I'm the luckiest idiot alive." The next morning, James met Tommy Alvarez at a Fremont coffee shop, the kind of place with mismatched chairs and baristas with nose rings. Tommy, in a hoodie and ripped jeans, was hunched over his laptop, a triple espresso in hand. "Yo, man, you look way too happy for someone in a tabloid shitstorm," Tommy said, eyeing him. "Did you and Adana, you know?" James smirked, sipping his black coffee. "Mind your business, T-Bone." "You got anything new on Vanessa?" Tommy grinned, turning his laptop to show a folder labeled V's Dirty Laundry. "Oh, I got the goods. More emails, plus some texts between her and Maggie. They're planning to crash the board meeting next week, push for a vote to oust you. Maggie's got half the board spooked, saying Adana's unstable because of the scandal." James's smile faded, anger flaring. "Unstable? Adana's the only one keeping this company afloat." "Right," Tommy said, popping a sugar cube in his mouth. "Your wife's a badass. I also found a burner phone number Vanessa's been using to tip off the paparazzi. Girls playing 4D chess." James leaned back, his mind racing. "We need to be ready. Adana's got a plan, but we'll need your tech skills to seal the deal. Can you pull metadata from those emails, prove they're legit?" Tommy cracked his knuckles. "Already on it, boss. I'm basically the Robin to your Batman, or Adana's Batman, 'cause she's the real hero here." James laughed, clapping his shoulder. You're a mess, but I owe you. Back at her apartment, Adana stood in her kitchen, chopping peppers for a batch of jollof rice, the rhythm of the knife soothing her nerves. Her sister Maya had arrived in Seattle that morning, her braids pulled into a high bun, her activist energy filling the space like a storm. Maya leaned against the counter, arms crossed, her voice sharp. Adana, you're forgiving him. After he ran to that blonde's penthouse, you're worth more than this. Adana didn't look up, her knife slicing through an onion. I'm not forgiving him, Maya. I'm choosing him. There's a difference. Maya scoffed. Choosing a man who betrayed you? That's not the sister I know. Adana set the knife down, her eyes fierce. The sister you know is still here, Maya. I married James for our family, but I'm staying for me. He's not perfect, but he's trying, and I'm strong enough to build something real with him. Maya's expression softened, but her voice was still firm. Just don't lose yourself, Adana. Not for him, not for Seattle, not for anyone. Adana nodded, a quiet resolve settling over her. I won't. I'm Adanna Adeyemi. I don't break. That afternoon, James and Adana met at Coleman Biotech's headquarters, poring over the emails in a quiet conference room. The city sparkled outside, the Space Needle a silver spike against the clouds. Adana's headscarf was a vibrant coral, her focus razor-sharp as she marked key passages. We present this to the board, she said, tapping the papers. But we don't just expose them. We show the board what Coleman Biotech can be. Stronger, smarter, united. James watched her, his heart swelling. You're a force, you know that? She smirked, her eyes glinting. Took you long enough to notice? He reached for her hand, his thumb brushing her knuckles. I'm noticing now, and I'm not letting go. She squeezed his hand, her smile soft but fierce. Good, because we've got a fight coming, and I need you, James. Across town, Vanessa Harrington stood in her penthouse, scrolling through a new batch of paparazzi photos, her lips curled in a smug smile. Maggie's voice crackled through her phone. The board's wavering, Vanessa. One more push, and James is out. Adana, too. Vanessa laughed, sipping her martini. Oh, Maggie, I've got them right where I want them. This board meeting? It's my checkmate. The boardroom at Coleman Biotech's headquarters in downtown Seattle was a battlefield disguised as a corporate sanctuary. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a misty view of Puget Sound, the gray water churning under a November sky. The long mahogany table gleamed under recessed lights, surrounded by board members in tailored suits, their faces a mix of anticipation and unease. James Coleman stood at the head of the table, his navy suit crisp, his hazel eyes steady but burning with purpose. Beside him was Adanna Adeyemi, his wife, her coral headscarf vibrant against her black blazer, her black skin luminous, her gray eyes sharp as a blade. They were a united front, ready to dismantle the conspiracy that had nearly torn them apart. Maggie Voss sat across the table, her silver bob immaculate, her pinched smile betraying nothing. Vanessa Harrington, uninvited but brazen, lounged near the back, her red dress a deliberate provocation, her blonde hair swept into a sleek bun. The air crackled with tension, every glance a salvo in a war that had been brewing for months. The board meeting was meant to review the Zenith Energy deal, but James and Adana had a bigger agenda, exposing Maggie and Vanessa's betrayal and reclaiming their future. James cleared his throat, his voice commanding the room. Thank you all for being here. The Zenith partnership is on track, thanks to Adana's sharp eye on the contracts. But before we dive in, there's another matter we need to address, a threat to this company's integrity. Maggie's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. Vanessa shifted, her smirk faltering. Adana stepped forward, a manila folder in hand, her presence silencing the room's murmurs. "For months," she began, her Nigerian accent lending each word a rhythmic weight. "Certain individuals have worked to undermine Coleman Biotech. They've spread lies, manipulated the press, and tried to fracture our leadership. Today, we're setting the record straight." She opened the folder, sliding printed emails across the table. The board members leaned forward, their eyes scanning the highlighted text. Gasps rippled through the room as they read Vanessa's words to Maggie. "Get him to my place, and I'll handle the rest. The board will eat it up, and his Nigerian princess will be out." Maggie's response was damning. "Make it messy. We need Coleman Biotech free of her influence." Adana's voice was calm but lethal. "Margaret Voss and Vanessa Harrington conspired to sabotage this company." Maggie used her position to sow doubt, while Vanessa orchestrated a scandal to discredit James and me. "They banked on you believing I was a liability, an outsider who didn't belong. But they were wrong." Maggie's face paled, her hands gripping the table. "This is outrageous," she sputtered. "Fabricated nonsense. I've served this company for decades." "Then explain these," James cut in, his voice like steel. He clicked a remote, and a screen lit up with metadata from the emails, time-stamped and verified. Tommy Alvarez, slouched in a corner with his laptop, gave a thumbs up, his grin pure mischief. "Our tech team, shout out to Tommy, pulled the digital trail. It's airtight, Maggie. You're done." The board erupted in whispers, their eyes darting between Maggie and Vanessa. Vanessa stood, her heels clicking as she tried to salvage her image. "This is a witch hunt," she snapped, her voice shrill. "James, you know me. We have history. Tell them it's not true." James's gaze was ice. "History? You mean the time you tried to ruin my marriage for headlines? Sit down, Vanessa, or I'll have security escort you out." Adana stepped closer to the table, her headscarf catching the light like a crown. "Mrs. Voss, Miss Harrington, you thought you could break us because I'm different. Because I'm a Black Nigerian woman in your world. But I'm Adanna Adeyemi, and I don't break. I build. And with James, we're building something stronger than your lies." The room was silent, the weight of her words settling like a verdict. A board member, an older man with wire-rimmed glasses, spoke first. "This is unacceptable, Margaret. Your actions jeopardize everything we stand for. I move for your immediate resignation." "Seconded," another board member said, her voice firm. The vote was swift, unanimous. Maggie's face crumpled, her power stripped in minutes. She stood, gathering her papers with trembling hands, and left without a word. Vanessa, realizing her defeat, stormed out, her red dress a fading ember. James turned to Adana, his voice resonant. "Before we close, I want to make something clear. Adana isn't just my wife. She's my partner, my equal. As of today, she's joining the board of Coleman Biotech. Her vision, her strength, her brilliance, they're our future." The room erupted in applause, genuine and sustained. Adana nodded, her smile restrained, but radiant. "I'm honored," she said, "not for the title, but for what we can do together. Let's make this company a legacy of innovation and integrity." As the meeting adjourned, James caught Adana's hand, his thumb brushing her knuckles. "You were incredible," he whispered. She smirked, her eyes glinting. "I know." That evening, the Coleman estate in Medina was transformed into a celebration of Nigerian culture, a victory party for James and Adana's triumph. The lawn, strung with golden lanterns, glowed against the twilight, Lake Washington shimmering beyond. Tables were laden with jollof rice, suya skewers, and a goosey stew, their aromas mingling with the beat of Afrobeats pulsing from speakers. Guests, board members, friends, and Adana's sister Maya mingled under the stars, their laughter blending with the music. Adana, in a flowing green Ankara gown, her headscarf a matching swirl of patterns, moved through the crowd, her black skin radiant under the lantern light. Her curls peeked out, framing her face, and her smile was unguarded, a rare gift. Maya, in a bold yellow dress, pulled her into a hug. "You did it, sis," Maya said, her braids swaying. "I'm proud of you, even if I still think James is a work in progress." Adana laughed, squeezing her sister's hand. "He's getting there." James, in a tailored blazer and jeans, tried his hand at a zonto, the Nigerian dance, under the guidance of a grinning guest. His moves were clumsy, his arms flailing, and the crowd roared with laughter. Adana joined him, her hips swaying with effortless grace, her eyes teasing. "James, you're a hazard," she called over the music. He grinned, undeterred. "I'm trying, babe. Give me points for effort." She shook her head, laughing, and pulled him into a spin, their hands locked. The crowd cheered, and Tommy Alvarez, beer in hand, shouted, "Yo, Coleman, you're embarrassing us! Let the queen lead!" Tommy's curly hair bounced as he joined in, his own dance moves a chaotic mix of enthusiasm and zero rhythm, earning more laughs. As the music slowed, James and Adana slipped away to the estate's balcony, the night air cool against their skin. The lake stretched before them, its surface a mirror of stars, the distant city lights twinkling like a promise. Adana leaned against the railing, her gown fluttering in the breeze, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. "We did it," James said, standing beside her, his voice soft. "You did it, Adana. I was just along for the ride." She turned to him, her smile warm. "We're a team, James. You stood with me today. That matters." He reached for her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. "I almost lost you," he said, his voice thick. "Vanessa, Maggie, the lies. I let them get to me. But you're my home, Adana. I'm ready for whatever comes next, as long as it's with you." Her eyes softened, and she stepped closer, her free hand resting on his chest. "Together," she said, her voice a vow. "Always." He leaned down, kissing her gently, her lips warm and sure against his. The world faded, the music, the laughter, the weight of the past, leaving only them, two people who'd found each other in a storm. Her curls brushed his cheek, her scent, jasmine and spice, filling his senses. When they pulled apart, snowflakes began to fall, dusting their shoulders like a blessing. "You planned the snow, didn't you?" James teased, brushing a flake from her cheek. She laughed, the sound rich and free. "I'm good, but not that good." They stood there, wrapped in each other, the snow falling softly, sealing their victory, their love, their future. Below, the party pulsed, a celebration of resilience and roots, of a Black Nigerian woman who'd claimed her place in a world that tried to push her out, and a man who'd learned to see her, truly see her. The next morning, James woke in their bedroom at the estate, Adana curled beside him, her headscarf off, her curls splayed across the pillow. Sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a golden glow on her black skin. He watched her sleep, his heart full, and thought back to the man he'd been 6 months ago, angry, lost, trapped by duty. Adana had changed him, not by demanding it, but by being herself, unapologetically. She'd taught him that love wasn't a contract, it was a choice, made every day. Downstairs, Tommy was already raiding the fridge, a leftover suya skewer in hand. "Yo, last night was epic," he said as James entered the kitchen. "Your wife's a legend, and you didn't totally suck at a zonto." James chuckled, pouring coffee. "High praise, T-Bone. You sticking around?" "Only if there's more jollof rice," Tommy said, grinning. But seriously, man, you and Adana, you're unstoppable now. James nodded, his eyes drifting to the staircase as Adana descended, her headscarf a soft blue, her smile bright. Yeah, he said. We are. Weeks later, Coleman Biotech thrived under James and Adana's leadership. The Zenith deal closed, stocks soared, and Adana's board role brought fresh ideas, sustainability initiatives, community outreach, partnerships with African tech hubs. The press, once vicious, now sang her praises, calling her the visionary behind Coleman's comeback. Vanessa faced a defamation lawsuit, her socialite status crumbling, while Maggie retired in disgrace, her legacy erased. James and Adana settled into a rhythm, their mornings filled with coffee and laughter, their nights with dreams of a shared future. They cooked jollof rice together, bickered over spice levels, and danced a zonto in the living room, James still hopeless, but trying. Adana's headscarf stayed, not always, but often, a symbol of her choice, her power, her roots. One evening, as snow blanketed the estate, they stood on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, the city sparkling below. "What's next for us?" James asked, his arm around her. Adana leaned into him, her eyes on the stars. "Everything," she said, "and we'll face it together." He kissed her temple, the snow falling like a quiet promise. They were no longer strangers bound by a deal, but partners forged in fire, their love a testament to what happens when you choose to see, to fight, to stay. If James and Adana's journey moved you, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. What's your favorite moment and where are you watching from? Their story proves love and trust can conquer anything, and we've got more epic tales coming your way. Stay tuned.